All right, guys. Hey, first I want to thank all the folks working behind, and Amarine Journey is the entomologist here to be included in the lineup. We got a great, I want to thank all the folks working behind here for putting this together. This is just great. And for you guys for taking time out. I appreciate it. Hopefully it's a great deal for you guys as well. How we got here, I'm going to go super fast so we can get to the real speakers. How we got here, in 2013 we thought let's reduce a little bit of input costs. The horsepower's old, we had old tractors, time was the big deal. So we tried a little bit of no-till, and where the corn is from the corn to the other road, that 90, we did half as no-till beans. And at the fall it was the same, like okay. So then in 2014 we had one of the worst springs we've had in a long time. And we ended up having, so we tried to do the in-between rains, do some tillage, and then try and plant, and all we were doing was turning the soil into muck and just soup. You'd lift the digger up at the headland and it would just sink. But then I come in, I'm talking to Dad, I'm like, well, the 8450 is carrying across the ground like a pudding skin, but when I scratch it to try and plant, now the 46 is just, and like, this isn't working. So we just stopped tilling. We're just like, we're just gonna plant in between rains. And it worked. We had a September 11th frost that year. Nothing made black layer. But we still had average corn production. And the wedge over here was our first year of 48 bushel beans. And I remember being at the elevator and every other guy is having a tantrum in the elevator on 30 bushel beans and there's no money. And I'm thinking, we just had 48 bushel beans on our worst year according to everybody else. Like this kind of worked. So then 15 we started dinking around with strip till a little bit, but still did a lot of no-till. At that point I'm still conventional minded, and so when I saw parts of the field that on the no-till weren't working compared to the strip till, you're like, oh, it doesn't work here. Everybody's right, it don't work here. And then when we started comparing yield maps of the no-till to conventional till, the patterns were the same. Just across the draw from the tractors, just to the east, and then you can see that yellow piece up there. Them are typical spots that on full till and no-till we're running 30% of production of the field. So that kind of made me start to think of some questions, and then we started having compaction issues. So then again we're like, well, this is why no-till don't work here. But instead of just going back to full till, we started bringing in covers. The NRC gals were pretty adamant to start bringing in covers, and so we did. And the university was out on this field and they're like, you need roots in this soil. There's clay, you need roots in the soil to fix it, because they did a water infiltration test. Karen and I come home, my wife Karen, by the way, thank you very much for this. She helps all, you know. We come home from work one day and there's some people in our field and we're like, well, this ought to be interesting. And so we stopped out there and checked with them. And I remember the gals, so the Mike come up and he told us what's going on, and we're like, oh, cool, never heard of that before. And the gal kept dumping water in the little rain simulator ring, and it was just down 3, 4, 5, 6 feet over. Pretty soon the water started percolating back up, and she, what the heck, because that soil was just so compacted and beat that the water just followed the horizontal layer until it found a wall and just started coming back up. And he's like, oh yeah, you need roots in this ground. And so that's why this field got put to alfalfa, and then we'll rotate faster on our hay rotations. But then with strip till, back to topic at hand, we started strip till. Now the maps on the strip till took them poor spots and really brought them up. We're fertilizing them poor spots in no-till conventional till the same 150 bushel goal that we were the good spots, except they weren't making us any money. They were 40 and 50 bushel corn with 150 bushel inputs, and you're like, that don't cash very well. So on the strip till, the first thing we noticed is, one, our inputs dropped. It replaced primary tillage, several secondary passes, and a fertilizing pass. And we noticed that in them poor spots, they were now 70 and 80% of the average of the field. So on the yield maps, them red spots just started shrinking big time, and the fields were just square. And the other thing we did was we stopped fighting mud. Like I don't have time, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with a hole in the field. I can, for that quarter of an acre, I can lift up and drive around and save the stress of calling, can you please bring the tractor out? I'm stuck again. When they don't let you live it down, it's embarrassing at the dinner table. I drove through it with no problem. I don't know. So we really love the strip till, and we'll talk more about that later, more specifically, but that really brought us along, and it showed us what's happening in the soil. And the no-till really exposed the problems in the soil. And you get a lot of people that, well, the no-till don't work here. But can you put the seed in the soil without working the soil? If yes, then not tilling worked. You got the seed in the ground. Once it's emerged, it's management after that. Well, the ground's way too wet. The no-till don't work because it comes up and the ground stays too wet. Well, that's showing that we have a percolation problem or an infiltration problem, or it exposes what's wrong with our soil. And everybody's soil is going to be different in what it exposes. And so along the ways, we had a lot of learning or failures, learning moments. And nutrient management was a big one, because when we till the soil, you get this big flush of CO2 and nutrients get released. Alfalfa is a great example of that. I'm a believer that our first cutting alfalfa is so big because we've had all winter that life is mineralizing and getting that soil and that plant ready. And then come first cutting, we had this cold, wet season leading to this first cutting, and we get this big, massive cutting, and then we have to fertilize for second and third crop to get there. So I think, to me, that's a great example of what life can do for us. And so our timing, we kept with we had a couple years we stayed with conventional timing and application of fertilizers, and it just, we were losing the boat. So we really had to manage our fertilizer different because our soil is different. Things are going there. Where we're hoping to go, I don't know. We're really loving the diversity part of this is really helping us. The 5 rules of soil health on the side of the trailer. Our next step is to really push the diversity side. It would be fun to get to the point where we're running a very minimal herbicide program where we're putting corn into a living mulch. So that's kind of how we got here today, is because this thing is just taking off and it's a great experience, and we just want to share it with everybody else. Like, hey, this could help other people. And so the goal of today is what if it did work here? The Make Farming Great Again. The slogan isn't a funny slogan. It's kind of cute, but the point of it is to bring that joy back to the farm, to find that passion, and instead of waking up in the morning like, I'm still here, you wake up in the morning like, yeah, let's get out there and we might make it work this year. We might pay our bills. This is awesome farming. And so the what if, your stress is on your farm. Everybody's stresses are different. Ours was compaction erosion, and infiltration was the big part. But other people, it might be mud in the spring and the fall, and timeliness of getting something done. We get a couple inch rain event. Well, now we can't side dress corn, we can't spray beans or this or that, where if we had healthy soil, what if it did work on your farm and you were able to do your management things you needed to do more timely? What would that mean on your farm? University of Iowa has primary tillage at $25 a pass. On a 1,000-acre farm, what if you were able to not do it on corn stalks? What if you got no-till or a minimum till pass in the next spring, everything the same, just not work them corn stalks in the fall? On 500 acres, that's $12,500 that you saved to grow the same crop next year. What would that mean to your farm and the time of it? If you got kids, family, life, that's a lot of stress in the fall of getting that tillage done at the same time that combine keeps moving, or in the spring. How many of us have stressed, like, holy crap, we got to finish the field and get it planted before the next rain comes because we're not going to finish it again, that stresses. And so that's the whole point of, just as we go through all these wonderful presenters today, of just think of the stresses on your farm, and is there something we can take home today to just help make our farm great again? The 5 rules here, that's kind of funny. So these principles work everywhere. There is not a piece of soil, because them principles, not rules, them principles worked on your farm for millennia, long before you rolled it over or an ancestor rolled it over with a plow. So they work everywhere. It says minimize tillage. We're not handing out sheets to pledge allegiance to no-till. All we're saying is try minimizing it. It's money. It's going to help the soil. The maximize diversity. We're not saying we all have to park the corn and soybean planters and start hand raising fruits and vegetables. But is there something we can do? Is there a cereal crop? Is there anything else instead of a soybean, a pea, or is there anything we can do to shake up the rotation on our farm to capitalize on local markets? Maybe with the changing weather patterns, is there anything there that we can work with to help our farm? Keeping the soil covered, that's a tough one for people to comprehend. Everybody's going to look at that corn residue in the spring, and they're going to say that corn residue is keeping my soil wet and black and cold, too wet. I can't plant into that. There is some insulation going on, but the wetness isn't from the corn residue per se. It's that the soil can't function. It's not functioning. It can't deal with that water. But maybe you're keeping the soil covered. You still deal with the corn residue with a minimum tillage situation, or you change rotations a little bit. But maybe your level is just behind soybeans. Maybe a starting point is to just a minimum pass on soybeans instead of disc ripping soybeans double. It can be that simple. Or your cover crop. If a guy throws in a little bit of a cover crop, you're adding some residue to the field, that armor. And the Maximize Living Roots is bringing in a cover crop, or again, we bring in a winter perennial or winter annuals, and we got roots growing, and it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. We'll see on these trays and the soil stuff, this field wasn't quite this dark 10 years ago. Where we got samples from them other fields several years ago didn't function like that. That Living Roots thing is pretty amazing. I don't want to sell anybody a load of BS of like, well, you just do that, you don't have to go to the co-op anymore. It's free. I want to question and say, the soil life has been found to produce all our minerals. We've seen pictures of trees growing in rocks. Nobody's fertilizing that tree. Soil life is breaking that rock down, releasing the nutrients to the tree. Let's invest in our soil life, so instead of writing that check to the co-op in the spring, they're guaranteed income off of us. We're not guaranteed income. And then the livestock, not everybody's cattle, sheep, livestock people, chickens, whatever your livestock, and not everybody's cut out for that. You don't have to do that. There is opportunities to work with livestock people. There are grazers out there that are looking to come behind your corn combine. They set up fencing, they set up water, they drop the cattle off. You guys agree on a per acre price, and at some point they come pull the cattle off. Your corn residue's cleaned up, and you got a check, and you got manure, and you got urine, you got some nitrogen credits, you got the manure coming out of that ruminant. It's a whole lot better than the corn stover just laying there. Simple guidelines that a guy just start at the most basic, smallest 1 acre on the farm. You know, we still have to pay bills. That is the hardest part here, is we got to pay bills. And so we're not saying like, as of now, just you're doing it this way. Like, no, you still got 99% that you have to do what you know how to do to cash flow. But let's take one planter, one sprayer pass on the edge of the field. That's our learning spot. That's our practice spot. The books. There's a book on each table. At the end of the day, if you want to take one home throughout the day, flip through it. When we're talking about that is a farm business management book. That's compiled data. So like on the rented corn page of non-irrigated, at one point there's 240 some farms on that page of this northeastern, north central Minnesota, of just all things. And it's kind of interesting that from 2019 the average guy was walking away with a $25 loss on the corn acres. And so it really kind of makes you think, like, what are we doing? Is it marketing? Is it our input costs? Where can we find that $25? Right there I did. That's where, the strip tills where I found 100 of it, but them principles are where we're doing it.